Admiral Vextai stood on the command deck of his massive warship, looking out at the stars through the viewing window. His ship was 3 miles long and carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Behind him, thousands of other ships floated in perfect formation. This was the Third Imperial Fleet, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. The admiral was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms that moved with practiced grace. His species, the Kethmori, had ruled the Galactic Empire for over 5,000 years. They believed they were the most advanced beings in the universe, and they had good reason to think so. Their technology was beyond anything most species could imagine. "Admiral," called his communications officer from across the bridge. "We have received a report from the scout ships in Sector 47. Vextai turned slowly. Scout reports were usually boring. Most of the galaxy had already been explored and catalogued. The Empire controlled over 10,000 star systems, and new discoveries were rare. "What have they found, Officer Zelt?" the Admiral asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered dozens of worlds. "A small system with 9 planets, sir. The 3rd planet from the star shows signs of intelligent life." Zelt paused, checking his data pad. "They call themselves humans, and their world is named Earth." Vextai walked over to the tactical display. A holographic image of the solar system appeared in the air between them. The planets spun slowly, showing their orbits around a yellow star. Earth appeared as a small blue dot, insignificant among the vast darkness of space. "What is their technology level?" Vextai asked, though he was already losing interest. "Very primitive, sir. They have only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Their ships are small and use basic fusion engines. They still fight wars among themselves and have no unified government." The Admiral laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. "Category 7 civilization, then. Barely worth our attention." Other officers on the bridge joined in the laughter. Category 7 was the lowest rating the Empire gave to spacefaring species. It meant they were so primitive that they posed no threat and offered little value. Most Category 7 civilizations were simply ignored until the Empire needed their worlds for resources. "Do they know about us?" Vextai asked. "There is no indication they are aware of the Empire's existence, sir. Their longest-range sensors can barely detect objects beyond their own star system." Vextai nodded and dismissed the report with a wave of his hand. "File it under future colonization prospects. When we have finished our current campaigns, we may return to claim their world. For now, they are not worth our time." The bridge crew returned to their duties, and the massive fleet continued on its patrol route. To them, Earth was just another primitive world filled with backward aliens who would eventually bow before Imperial might. They had seen it happen thousands of times before, but far away, on the 3rd planet of that small system, things were not quite as simple as the Imperial scouts believed. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in a conference room deep beneath the surface of the moon. Around the long metal table sat the most important people in human civilization. These were the leaders of the United Earth Defense Council, and they had been meeting in secret for over 20 years. "The probe ships have returned, Doctor," Chen announced to the group. "We now have complete scans of their fleet composition and weapon systems." General Marcus Webb, a stern man with gray hair and tired eyes, leaned forward. "How bad is it?" "Worse than we thought," Chen replied honestly. "Their smallest warships are larger than our biggest battleships. Their weapons are centuries ahead of anything we use in our regular fleet." President Elena Vasquez of the Earth Council spoke next. "Then we were right to begin the Prometheus program. How much time do we have?" "Based on their patrol patterns, probably 5 to 10 years before they return to this sector," Chen said. "But it could be sooner if something changes their priorities." The room fell silent. Everyone present knew that humanity's fate hung in the balance. For decades, they had known this day would come. Earth's astronomers had detected signs of the galactic empire long ago. Massive energy signatures moving between star systems. The organized patterns of a vast civilization. Most humans had no idea their planet was being watched. The general population went about their daily lives, working, studying, and dreaming of the future. They knew humanity had spread to a few nearby star systems, but they did not know about the enormous empire that surrounded them. But the leaders in this room knew. They had been preparing for this moment since the first signs of alien activity were detected. The Prometheus program was humanity's secret weapon, a project so classified that only a few hundred people knew it existed. Status report on the Aegis, President Vasquez requested. Dr. Robert Hayes, the chief scientist of the Prometheus program, opened his folder. Construction is 93% complete. The quantum cores are operational, and the biomechanical hull has passed all initial tests. We should be ready for final trials within 6 months. And the crew? Captain Rodriguez and her team have been training for 3 years. They know the ship better than anyone has ever known a spacecraft. The AI integration is also proceeding ahead of schedule. General Webb looked skeptical. One ship against an entire galactic empire. Are we certain this will work? Dr. Chen turned to face him. Marcus, our conventional fleet would last maybe 10 minutes against one of their battle groups. But the Aegis isn't a conventional ship. We've built something they've never seen before, using principles their science doesn't understand. Explain it to me again, the general requested. Hayes pulled up a holographic display showing the Aegis. The ship looked strange compared to normal human vessels. Its hull seemed to ripple and flow like liquid metal, and its weapons were unlike anything in standard military arsenals. Traditional space combat relies on energy shields and plasma weapons, Hayes explained. The Empire has perfected these technologies over thousands of years, but they've become locked into thinking that's the only way to fight in space. We've taken a different approach, Dr. Chen continued. Instead of trying to build better plasma cannons, we've created weapons that bypass their defenses entirely. Instead of stronger armor, we've developed hull plating that adapts and learns. President Vasquez studied the hologram carefully. And you're confident this will work? We've tested every system extensively, Hayes replied. The Empire's ships are powerful, but they're also predictable. They've been using the same basic designs for centuries. The Aegis represents a completely new way of thinking about space warfare. General Webb still looked worried. What if they have reserves we don't know about? What if one ship isn't enough? The room grew quiet again. It was a valid concern. Earth's intelligence about the Empire was limited to what they could observe from a distance. There could be weapons and technologies they hadn't detected. Then we build more, Dr. Chen said simply. The Aegis is our prototype, but it's not our only plan. If it succeeds, we can build an entire fleet using the same technology. If it fails... She paused. If it fails, at least we'll have shown them that humanity won't go quietly. As the meeting continued, high above them on Earth's surface, people went about their normal lives. Children played in parks, students attended classes, and workers built the future they dreamed of. None of them knew that their world had been marked for conquest by an empire that considered them barely worth noticing. But in the hidden bases and secret laboratories scattered throughout the solar system, humanity's best and brightest worked, desperately to prove that the Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had overlooked Earth's prototypes, dismissed human ingenuity, and underestimated what a species could accomplish when fighting for survival. Soon, they would learn the cost of that arrogance. Captain Elena Rodriguez floated through the corridors of the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. The UES Aegis looked nothing like the sleek battleships that protected Earth's colonies. Its walls seemed alive, rippling with a metallic substance that felt warm to the touch. Strange lights pulsed beneath the surface, following patterns that somehow made sense to her trained eye. The ship was hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid that had been pulled into orbit around the far side of the moon. From the outside, it looked like just another piece of space rock. Even if Imperial scouts came looking, they would find nothing but empty stone and ice. "Cerberus, status report," Rodriguez said aloud as she made her way to the bridge. A voice responded from the walls, themselves, neither male nor female, but somehow perfectly human. "All systems operating at peak efficiency, Captain. Biomechanical hull integrity is at 100%. Quantum cores are stable. Weapon systems are ready for deployment." Cerberus was the ship's artificial intelligence, but calling it AI didn't really capture what it was. The computer had been grown rather than built, using techniques that combined human brain tissue with quantum processors. It could think, learn, and adapt in ways that traditional computers never could. "Any word from Earth Command?" Rodriguez asked. "Dr. Chen is requesting a meeting in Conference Room Alpha in 30 minutes. The other department heads are already on their way." Rodriguez nodded and changed direction toward the conference room. As she moved through the ship, she passed other crew members going about their duties. All 500 people aboard the Aegis were volunteers who had given up their old lives to serve on this secret mission. Many of them had families who thought they were dead. The conference room was a circular chamber in the heart of the ship. Dr. Sarah Chen appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from her office beneath the lunar surface. Around the table sat the Aegis's senior officers, the best pilots, engineers, and warriors humanity had to offer. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dr. Chen began, "our long-range sensors have detected movement in the outer system. The Empire is sending ships to investigate Seoul." The room fell silent. They had known this day would come, but it still felt too soon. Commander Lisa Park, the ship's weapons officer, spoke first. "How many ships?" "Initial scans show 12 vessels. It appears to be a diplomatic mission with military escort. They're following standard Imperial protocols for first contact with primitive civilizations, meaning they expect us to surrender immediately," said Chief Engineer David Kim. Dr. Chen nodded. "The Empire has done this thousands of times before. They arrive, make demands, and the local species either submits or gets destroyed. They have no reason to think Earth will be any different." Captain Rodriguez studied the tactical display that had appeared above the table. The Imperial ships were massive, each one larger than Earth's biggest space stations, but she had spent 3 years learning every detail of her own vessel, and she was no longer intimidated by size alone. "What are our orders?" she asked. "Earth. Command wants you to remain hidden until the situation develops. Let our conventional forces handle first contact. But be ready to act if things go badly." Dr. Robert Hayes, who had helped design the Aegis, leaned forward. "Captain, I want to review the ship's capabilities one more time. Some of the crew still don't fully understand what we've built here." Rodriguez nodded. "Proceed, Doctor." Hayes activated a holographic display showing a cutaway view of the ship. "The Aegis represents 20 years of secret research into technologies the Empire has never encountered. Let me explain each system." He pointed to the hull. "The biomechanical armor isn't just protective plating. It's a living organism that can repair damage in real time. When enemy weapons hit us, the hull learns to resist that type of attack. After a few hits, most weapons become completely ineffective." Commander Park raised her hand. "What about really powerful weapons? Planet killers? The hull can adapt to anything below a certain energy threshold," Hayes replied. "But more importantly, it makes us very hard to kill quickly. In space combat, surviving the first exchange of fire is usually the key to victory." He moved to the weapons systems. "Our primary armament consists of kinetic accelerators that use controlled microsingularities to launch projectiles at near-light speed. These projectiles are made of quantum-entangled matter that phases through most types of energy shields. In simple terms," Dr. Chen added from the screen, "our bullets ignore their shields and hit them directly." Hayes continued. The targeting system uses quantum mechanics to lock onto enemy ships. Once we have a target lock, it's virtually impossible to break using conventional countermeasures. We can hit fast-moving targets across enormous distances with perfect accuracy. Chief Kim spoke up. What about their numbers advantage? Even if we can hurt them, there are thousands of Imperial ships. That's where Cerberus comes in, Hayes explained. Traditional warship computers follow programmed responses. Cerberus can think creatively, adapt to new situations, and learn from every exchange. The longer a battle lasts, the smarter our ship becomes. The AI's voice filled the room. I have studied every known Imperial ship design and weapon system. I have run over 10 million combat simulations. I am ready. Rodriguez felt a chill at the confidence in Cerberus's voice. The AI was not boasting. It was simply stating facts as it understood them. There's one more thing, Dr. Chen said from the screen. The Aegis is equipped with something we call adaptive camouflage. The hull can change its appearance and sensor signature to look like almost anything. A piece of debris, an asteroid, even another type of ship. How does that work? Asked Navigation Officer Sam Torres. Hayes smiled. The biomechanical hull can reshape itself within certain limits. Combined with holographic projectors and sensor scramblers, we can become nearly invisible to most detection systems. Rodriguez absorbed all this information, but she still had questions. Doctor, we've tested all these systems individually, but we've never faced real Imperial weapons. What if we're wrong about their capabilities? Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. Elena, I won't lie to you. We're making educated guesses based on long-range observations. But our analysis shows that Imperial technology has remained largely unchanged for centuries. They've become overconfident, maybe even complacent. And if they have secret weapons we don't know about, then we adapt, Hayes said simply. That's what the Aegis was designed to do. Learn, evolve, survive. The meeting continued for another hour as they reviewed battle plans and emergency procedures. When it ended, Rodriguez remained in the conference room, staring at the tactical displays. Cerberus spoke to her privately. Captain, you seem concerned. 500 crew members, Rodriguez said quietly. 500 people who trusted me to lead them on a mission that might be suicide. Do you believe the mission will fail? Rodriguez considered the question carefully. I believe we have advantages the Empire doesn't expect. But I also know that war is unpredictable. Good plans can fail, and good people can die. I have been analyzing the probability matrices, Cerberus said. Our chances of success are significantly higher than random chance would suggest. How much higher? Difficult to calculate precisely without more data on Imperial response patterns. But, Captain, I want you to know something. Rodriguez was surprised. AI systems didn't usually express personal desires. What is it, Cerberus? I have been designed to protect this ship and its crew. That is my primary function. But I have also been studying human nature, human history, human courage. I believe that humanity has qualities that cannot be quantified or calculated. Such as the ability to succeed when success should be impossible. Your species has a pattern of overcoming superior opponents through innovation and determination. The Empire has never faced an enemy like humanity. Rodriguez felt some of her tension. Ease. Thank you, Cerberus. That's reassuring. Captain, may I make a suggestion? Of course. The crew respects your technical knowledge and tactical skills, but they also need to see that you believe in the mission. They need to know that their captain is confident in their abilities and their ship. Rodriguez smiled. Cerberus was right, of course. Leadership wasn't just about making the right decisions. It was about inspiring others to give their best effort even in impossible situations. She left the conference room and began walking through the ship, stopping to talk with crew members at their stations. She visited the engineering decks where technicians maintained the quantum cores, the weapons bays where gunners practiced with targeting systems, and the living quarters where off-duty personnel tried to relax before the coming storm. Everywhere she went, she saw the same thing: highly trained professionals doing their jobs with quiet competence. These people had sacrificed everything to serve aboard the Aegis. They deserved a captain who matched their dedication. As she completed her tour of the ship, Rodriguez felt her confidence returning. The Empire might have superior numbers and centuries of experience, but they had never faced anything like the Aegis. More importantly, they had never faced anything like humanity itself. Soon they would learn what Earth's prototypes could do. The Imperial diplomatic fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system with the confidence of a civilization that had never known defeat. Admiral Vextai watched the primitive human worlds through his viewing screen as his ships took position around the third planet. "Begin standard contact protocols," he ordered his communications officer. "Send the compliance message." The message was simple and had been used thousands of times before. Submit to Imperial rule, accept a planetary governor, provide tribute and resources, and your species will be allowed to continue existing under Imperial protection. Refuse, and face the consequences. On Earth, the message was received at the United Earth Defense Council headquarters. Dr. Sarah Chen read the translation aloud to the emergency session of world leaders who had gathered in the crisis room. "They want us to surrender immediately," she explained. "Complete submission to their authority. They're offering to let us live as subjects of their empire." President Elena Vasquez looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. They had prepared for this moment for decades, but it still felt surreal to be facing the actual demand for Earth's surrender. "How long do we have to respond?" asked General Marcus Webb. "They've given us 6 hours," Chen replied. "Standard Imperial protocol. They expect most species to accept immediately once they see the size of the fleet." "And if we refuse?" "They'll make an example of us. Probably destroy one of our orbital stations or military bases to show they're serious. After that, they'll expect us to reconsider." President Vasquez stood up slowly. "Then we give them our answer. Dr. Chen, please prepare a response. We decline their generous offer." Meanwhile, hidden on the dark side of the moon, Captain Rodriguez watched the Imperial fleet through the Aegis's sensors. The enemy ships were arranged in a perfect formation around Earth, their weapons pointed at major population centers. "Cerberus, analysis of the Imperial vessels," she requested. 12 ships total, the AI responded. 1 command dreadnought, 4 heavy cruisers, 6 escort destroyers, and 1 communications vessel. The dreadnought carries enough firepower to destroy entire continents. Weaknesses? Their formation suggests they expect no resistance. Ships are positioned for intimidation rather than combat efficiency. Their shields are at minimal power, and their weapons are not fully charged. Rodriguez nodded. The Empire was so confident in their superiority that they weren't even taking basic defensive precautions. Back on Earth, Dr. Chen stood before a camera that would transmit humanity's response to the Imperial fleet. She had chosen her words carefully, knowing that this message would either start a war or begin negotiations. "To the representatives of the Galactic Empire," she began, "we have received your message and considered your offer. The people of Earth appreciate your interest in our world, but we must respectfully decline. Humanity values its independence and will continue to govern itself. We hope this decision can be respected and that peaceful relations between our peoples are possible." The message was transmitted to the Imperial flagship, where Admiral Vextai received it with complete shock. In 5,000 years of Imperial expansion, no primitive species had ever refused their initial demand for surrender. "They declined?" he asked his communications officer, as if he had misheard. "Yes, sir. They claim they wish to remain independent." Vextai turned to his tactical officer. "Are their military forces moving to attack positions?" "No, sir. Their fleet is maintaining defensive positions around their homeworld." They don't appear to be preparing for offensive action." The Admiral laughed, though there was less humor in it than before. "They think they can simply say no to the Empire? These humans are either very brave or very stupid." "Your orders, sir?" Vextai considered his options. Standard protocol was to make a demonstration of Imperial power, usually by destroying something. Important but not vital. A space station, perhaps, or a military base. After seeing Imperial weapons in action, most species reconsidered their position. "Target their largest orbital station," he ordered. "Prepare a single plasma cannon shot. We'll show them what Imperial technology can do." The targeting systems of the flagship locked onto Orbital Station Alpha, Earth's primary space dock. Home. To 50,000 people, it was a symbol of human achievement in space. Its destruction would send a clear message without causing excessive casualties. "Target locked, sir." Fire. A brilliant beam of blue energy lanced out from the Imperial dreadnought, moving at the speed of light toward the human station. It was a controlled shot, precisely calibrated to destroy the target without excessive damage to surrounding structures. The beam struck something invisible a few hundred meters from the station and dispersed harmlessly into space. Where the plasma should have punched through metal and caused massive explosions, there was nothing but a brief light show. "What happened?" Vextai demanded. "Unknown, sir. The weapon functioned normally, but the energy was somehow dispersed before reaching the target. Scan for defensive systems." "Sir, I'm detecting an energy field around the station, but it's unlike any shield technology in our databases. The field appears to be learning from our attack." Vextai stared at the display in disbelief. No primitive species should have shield technology that could stop Imperial weapons. And what did the officer mean by learning? Dr. Chen's voice came over the communication channel. "Admiral, I'm afraid your weapon had no effect. We've been observing your technology for quite some time. We know how your plasma systems work." "Impossible," Vextai snarled. "Scan their entire system. Find out how they're doing this." As his ships began intensive scans of Earth's defenses, they detected energy signatures unlike anything in Imperial science. The humans had surrounded their important installations with defensive fields that seemed to adapt and change in real time. "Sir," his science officer reported, "these aren't traditional energy shields. They appear to be using some form of quantum field manipulation. Our weapons are being phase-shifted out of normal space before they can impact." Vextai felt a cold sensation in his stomach. If these humans had defensive technology that could stop Imperial weapons, what other surprises might they have? "Dr. Chen," he transmitted to Earth, "your defensive systems are impressive, but you cannot protect your entire planet. Surrender now, or we will demonstrate the full power of the Imperial fleet." "Admiral," Chen replied calmly, "we understand that. You have many powerful ships, but we also understand that you've never faced an enemy quite like humanity. We strongly suggest you reconsider your position." The arrogance in her voice enraged Vextai. No primitive species had ever spoken to an Imperial admiral with such confidence. These humans needed to learn their place in the galaxy. "All ships," he commanded, "target every human installation in this system. Military bases, space stations, orbital platforms, destroy them all." "Sir," his tactical officer said hesitantly, "that would violate Imperial law regarding civilian casualties." "These humans have chosen to resist the Empire," Vextai replied coldly. "They are now enemy combatants, not civilians. Fire at will." Across the Imperial fleet, weapons systems powered up to full charge. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and fusion missiles prepared to rain destruction on humanity's space-based infrastructure. It would be a display of power that would end human resistance in a matter of minutes. The attack began with a storm of energy that lit up the space around Earth. Hundreds of weapons fired simultaneously, creating a light show visible from the planet's surface. It was the kind of overwhelming assault that had broken the will of countless species. But something was wrong. As the weapon's fire reached their targets, the same thing happened again and again. Energy beams dispersed harmlessly, missiles exploded against invisible barriers, and particle streams were deflected into empty space. "Report!" Vextai shouted. "Sir, none of our weapons are penetrating their defenses. The energy fields around their installations are adapting to each type of attack. It's as if they're learning how to counter our weapons in real time." "How is that possible?" "Unknown, sir. But each successive shot is less effective than the last. Their shields are becoming immune to our weapons." Vextai stared at the tactical display in growing horror. His fleet was firing everything they had at the humans and achieving absolutely nothing. Worse, his ships were now sitting motionless in space, their positions revealed, their weapons exhausted. "Admiral," Dr. Chen's voice came over the communication channel again. "You've now seen what our defensive systems can do. Your weapons are impressive, but they won't work against us. We suggest you withdraw and report to your superiors that Earth is not as defenseless as you believed." But Vextai's pride would not allow retreat. He had been humiliated by a species the Empire considered barely worth cataloging. If word of this failure reached Imperial Command, his career would be over. "All ships, ramming speed," he ordered. "If our weapons won't work, we'll destroy them through direct collision." It was a desperate move, but Imperial ships were massive and heavily armored. Even if the humans had superior shields, they couldn't stop several thousand tons of metal and ceramic traveling at high speed. As the Imperial fleet began accelerating toward Earth's installations, alarms began sounding throughout the human system. This was the moment Earth Command had been preparing for. The UES Aegis emerged from the shadows of the moon like a predator stepping into the light. To Imperial sensors, it appeared as just another human warship, smaller than their destroyers, unremarkable in design, hardly worth their attention. Admiral Vextai barely glanced at the new contact on his display as his fleet charged toward Earth's orbital installations. "Sir, detecting a single human warship approaching from lunar orbit," his tactical officer reported. "One ship?" Vextai laughed bitterly. "They send one ship against an entire Imperial fleet? Destroy it quickly and continue the attack." But Captain Elena Rodriguez had no intention of fighting a conventional battle. As the Aegis moved into position, its biomechanical hull began to change. The ship's outer surface rippled like water, shifting from the dull gray of human military vessels to something that seemed to absorb light itself. "Cerberus, initiate stealth protocols," Rodriguez commanded. "Stealth active, Captain. We are now invisible to their sensors." The Imperial ships continued their charge toward Earth stations, unaware that death was moving among them. The Aegis slipped through their formation like a ghost, its adaptive camouflage making it appear as nothing more than a piece of space debris. "Target selection, Cerberus? Recommend we begin with the rear escort vessels. Eliminating them will not alert the main formation, and we can study Imperial defensive systems before engaging larger targets." Rodriguez nodded. "Agreed. Target the destroyer at position 7. Quantum targeting system? Lock achieved. The target cannot break our targeting matrix regardless of evasive maneuvers. Weapons free. The Aegis fired its first shot of the war. A stream of quantum-entangled particles accelerated to near light speed, struck the Imperial destroyer's engine section. The projectiles phased through the ship's energy shields as if they didn't exist, then materialized inside the vessel's hull. The destroyer exploded from within, its fusion reactor breached and its hull torn apart by the sudden release of energy. The explosion was so complete that there was no time for a distress signal. "One target eliminated," Cerberus reported with satisfaction. "Imperial shields offer no protection against our weapons. Proceeding to next target." The Aegis moved like a predator stalking prey. Its biomechanical hull adapted to mimic the energy, signature of the destroyed ship, allowing it to move closer to the Imperial formation without detection. The second destroyer died as quickly as the first, its crew never knowing what had killed them. By the time Admiral Vextai realized something was wrong, he had lost 3 ships. "Sir," his communications officer called out in panic. "Destroyers 7, 9, and 11 are no longer responding to signals." "What do you mean? Not responding?" "Sir, they're gone. Completely destroyed. There's nothing left but debris fields." Vextai spun toward his tactical display. Where 3 Imperial destroyers had been moments before, there were only expanding clouds of metal fragments and plasma. "How is that possible? What attacked them?" "Unknown, sir. We detected no weapons fire, no energy signatures. They simply exploded." But even as the Admiral tried to understand what was happening, the Aegis was already moving toward its next target. The ship's adaptive systems had been studying Imperial technology with each attack, learning more about their hull composition, shield frequencies, and structural weaknesses. Cerberus, status report on Imperial defenses. Their shields operate on predictable frequencies that our weapons can easily bypass. Hull armor is impressive, but has critical weak points near engine assemblies and weapon mounts. Their sensor systems are sophisticated, but rely on traditional electromagnetic detection methods. In other words, they can't see us coming. "Correct, Captain. We can eliminate their entire fleet before they understand what is attacking them." Rodriguez felt a cold satisfaction as she watched the enemy formation. These were the ships that had come to conquer Earth, to enslave humanity and treat them as subjects. Now they were about to learn what happened when they underestimated human ingenuity. "Target the heavy cruiser at position 3, she ordered. This time, the Aegis attacked with multiple weapons simultaneously. Kinetic accelerators struck the cruiser's shield generators, while quantum torpedoes phased through its hull to detonate against critical systems. The massive warship, which had participated in the conquest of dozens of worlds, broke apart in seconds. Admiral Vextai watched in horror as another of his ships died without warning. "All ships! Emergency evasive maneuvers! We're under attack!" The Imperial fleet scattered, abandoning their charge toward Earth's installations. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly broke apart, each vessel desperately trying to avoid whatever was killing them. But there was nowhere to run. The Aegis moved through their formation like a shark among fish, its adaptive camouflage allowing it to appear as debris, asteroids, or even other Imperial ships. Every few minutes, another explosion marked the death of a vessel that had taken decades to build and centuries to perfect. "Sir, we have to retreat," the tactical officer pleaded. "We're losing ships faster than we can count them." "No," Vextai shouted. "The Empire does not retreat from primitive aliens. Find whatever is attacking us and destroy it." But his remaining ships were firing blindly into space, their weapons hitting nothing but empty vacuum. Their sensors showed no enemy vessels, no weapons signatures, no indication of where the attacks were coming from. The Aegis revealed itself only when it chose to, appearing long enough to destroy another target before vanishing again into the darkness. Captain Rodriguez watched the chaos with grim satisfaction. "Captain," Cerberus said, "I am detecting increased Imperial communications traffic. They are attempting to contact their home fleet for reinforcements." "Block their signals," Rodriguez ordered. "I don't want word of this getting out until we're finished here." Communications jamming active. The Imperial fleet is now completely isolated. One by one, the mighty ships of the Third Imperial Fleet died. Each death taught the Aegis more about Imperial technology, making the next attack even more devastating. The biomechanical hull learned to mimic Imperial ship signatures perfectly, allowing the Aegis to position itself among enemy vessels before striking. Admiral Vextai found himself commanding a steadily shrinking fleet, watching his life's work disappear before his eyes. Ships that had conquered star systems were being destroyed by an enemy he couldn't see, couldn't understand, couldn't fight. "Sir," his science officer reported with a trembling voice, "I'm detecting anomalous energy, readings from the area where Cruiser 4 was destroyed. Something is different about that debris field." "Explain." The debris is moving in patterns inconsistent with normal explosion dynamics. It's almost as if something is hiding among the wreckage. Vexatai studied the display, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Then, for just a moment, he caught a glimpse of something that made his blood freeze. A ship unlike anything in Imperial databases, its hull seeming to flow like liquid metal, weapons that defied known physics. "There!" he shouted. "Target that! Vessel, all remaining ships, focus fire on those coordinates." The surviving Imperial ships turned their weapons on the Aegis, finally able to see their tormentor. Plasma beams and particle weapons converged on the human vessel in a storm of destructive energy, but the biomechanical hull had been learning from every Imperial attack throughout the battle. As the enemy fire struck, the living armor adapted and changed, becoming immune to each type of weapon after only a few hits. What should have been a devastating barrage became nothing more than a light show. "Impossible," Vextai whispered as he watched their most powerful weapons fail to even scratch the human ship. Captain Rodriguez smiled grimly. "Cerberus, I think it's time we introduced ourselves properly." "Agreed, Captain. Shall we decloak completely?" "Do it." The Aegis dropped all pretense of stealth, revealing itself in all its alien glory. The ship's hull rippled and flowed, healing damage as fast as the Imperial weapons could inflict it. Its weapons were unlike anything the Empire had ever seen, phasing through shields and striking with impossible precision. "Attention, Imperial fleet," Rodriguez broadcast on all frequencies. "You came here to conquer Earth. Instead, you have discovered that humanity is not as helpless as you believed. Your weapons cannot harm us. You cannot hide from us, and you cannot escape us." Admiral Vextai stared at the impossible ship on his display. Everything he had believed about Imperial superiority, about the natural order of the galaxy, was crumbling before his eyes. "What are you?" he transmitted. "We are what happens when you underestimate human ingenuity," Rodriguez replied. "We are the price of your arrogance." The Aegis moved toward the Imperial flagship with the patient confidence of a predator that knows its prey cannot escape. Admiral Vextai watched death approach and made the only choice he had left. "All ships, ramming speed! If we cannot destroy them with weapons, we'll take them with us." The remaining Imperial vessels turned toward the Aegis in a final desperate charge. It was a futile gesture, but it was all they had left. Captain Rodriguez watched them come without fear. "Cerberus, prepare for collision protocol." "Captain, are you certain? We could easily destroy them before they reach us." "I want to send a message," Rodriguez said quietly. "I want the Empire to understand exactly what they're dealing with." The silence that followed the destruction of the Imperial fleet was deafening. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Aegis, watching the debris fields that had once been the Third Imperial Fleet drift slowly through space. Pieces of metal and ceramic that had taken centuries to forge were now nothing more than cosmic dust. "Cerberus, damage report," she requested. "Hull integrity at 98%. All weapons systems operational. Biomechanical armor has adapted to 12 different Imperial weapon types and is now immune to their entire arsenal. We are fully combat ready." Rodriguez nodded, but she felt no satisfaction in the victory. The destruction had been necessary, but she took no pleasure in the deaths of so many sentient beings. The Empire had forced this confrontation, but that didn't make the killing any easier to bear. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." Dr. Sarah Chen appeared on the main screen, her face showing a mixture of relief and amazement. "Elena, we monitored the entire engagement. The Imperial fleet is completely destroyed?" "Confirmed, Doctor. 12 ships eliminated with 0 damage to our forces or Earth's installations." "And the Aegis performed as expected?" Rodriguez looked around her bridge at the crew members who had risked everything for this moment. "Better than expected. Cerberus, and the biomechanical systems exceeded all projections. The ship is remarkable. Then it's time for the next phase, Chen said. We need to send a message to the Empire. They need to understand that Earth is no longer a target for conquest. What kind of message? The kind that will prevent them from sending another fleet. Elena, I want you to take the Aegis to the Imperial capital. I want you to show them what happened to their third fleet, and I want you to make it clear that the same fate awaits any other force they send against us. Rodriguez felt a chill at the suggestion. Flying deep into Imperial space would be incredibly dangerous, even for a ship as advanced as the Aegis. Doctor, that's a one-way mission. The Empire has thousands of ships. Even if we can defeat them, we'll eventually be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Not necessarily, Chen replied. Our analysis suggests that Imperial technology has remained static for centuries. They rely on overwhelming force rather than innovation. The Aegis represents a completely new form of warfare that they're not equipped to handle. But surely they'll adapt? Develop countermeasures? Eventually, yes. But that will take time. Years, maybe decades. In the meantime, we'll be building more ships like the Aegis. By the time they figure out how to fight us, we'll have evolved beyond their ability to catch up. Rodriguez considered the plan. It was audacious, risky, and completely insane. It was also exactly the kind of bold move that might actually work. Cerberus, analysis of Imperial space defenses. The AI's voice filled the bridge. Based on intercepted communications and sensor data, the Empire maintains static defense networks around major systems. However, these defenses are designed to stop conventional attacks. Our adaptive stealth capabilities should allow us to penetrate deep into Imperial territory without detection. And the capital world? Heavily defended, but predictable. The Imperial fleet uses standard formations and tactics that have not changed significantly in over 1,000 years. We could strike the capital and withdraw before they could mount an effective response. Rodriguez looked at her crew. These 500 people had already risked their lives once. Was it fair to ask them to do it again? Captain, her executive officer said quietly, may I speak freely? Of course, Commander Park. We all knew this was a one-way mission when we volunteered. Earth is our home, and these people came here to destroy it. If there's a chance to end this war before it really begins, we should take it. Around the bridge, other crew members nodded in agreement. They had given up their old lives to serve on this secret mission. They were ready to finish what they had started. Dr. Chen, Rodriguez said to the screen, what message do you want us to deliver? Simple and direct. Earth is under the protection of humanity. Any further aggression will be met with the same response. We know where they live, and we can reach them whenever we choose. And if they don't believe us, Chen smiled grimly, then you make them believe. Show them the wreckage of their fleet. Show them what the Aegis can do. Make it clear that this is just the beginning of what humanity is capable of. The transmission ended, leaving Rodriguez alone with her thoughts and her crew. She had been trained for conventional space warfare, not for the kind of deep strike mission Chen was proposing. But then again, nothing about the Aegis was conventional. Cerberus, plot a course for the Imperial capital. Maximum stealth, fastest possible. Route. Course plotted, Captain. The journey will take approximately 18 days using our quantum drive systems. I recommend we avoid all major shipping lanes and Imperial patrol routes. Agreed. Take us out. The Aegis turned away from Earth and accelerated toward the edge of the solar system. As they passed the orbit of Pluto, Rodriguez took one last look at the star that had given birth to humanity. It seemed impossibly small and fragile from this distance. Captain, Cerberus said privately, may I share an observation? Go ahead. I have been analyzing human history during our journey preparation. Your species has a remarkable pattern of achieving victory against superior opponents through unconventional tactics and superior technology. Ancient history, Cerberus. This is a little different from fighting with swords and arrows. Perhaps, But the principle remains the same. You identify your opponent's weaknesses and exploit them ruthlessly. The Empire's weakness is their confidence in their own superiority. Rodriguez nodded. The AI was right. The Empire had conquered the galaxy by being stronger and more advanced than everyone they encountered. They had never faced an enemy that could match their technology and exceed their innovation. The journey to the Imperial capital took exactly 18 days. The Aegis slipped through space like a ghost, avoiding Imperial patrols and monitoring stations. Cerberus had plotted their route to take advantage of gravitational shadows and sensor dead zones, making them effectively invisible to Imperial detection networks. When they finally reached the capital system, Rodriguez was amazed by what she saw. Thousands of ships moved in carefully organized patterns around a massive blue-green world. Orbital platforms the size of small moons served as docking facilities for the Imperial fleet. It was a display of power unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. Cerberus, scan for the Imperial High Command facility. Located, Captain. The primary command center is a space station in high orbit around the capital world. It appears to house the Empire's senior military leadership. Perfect. That's where we need to deliver our message. The Aegis moved through the system's outer regions, studying Imperial ship movements and defensive patterns. Everything was precisely organized, following protocols that had probably been established centuries ago. There was no creativity, no adaptation, no innovation. Captain, the communications officer reported, I'm detecting a massive increase in Imperial fleet activity. Ships are being recalled from across the galaxy. They must have discovered what happened to the Third Fleet, Rodriguez realized. How long before they reached the capital? Based on their movement patterns, approximately 6 hours, Cerberus replied. Rodriguez smiled. Perfect timing. She wanted the Imperial leadership to be present for her demonstration. Take us in, Cerberus. Full stealth approach. The Aegis moved toward the heart of Imperial power, invisible to the thousands of sensors that should have detected it. As they approached the command station, Rodriguez opened a channel on all Imperial frequencies. Attention, Imperial High Command. This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the United Earth Defense Force. We are here to discuss the fate of your Third Fleet. Panic erupted across Imperial communications as thousands of ships suddenly realized there was an unknown vessel in their most secure system. But their sensors showed nothing, their weapons had no target, and their most advanced detection systems registered only empty space. We know you're out there, came a response from the command station. Show yourself. As you wish, Rodriguez replied. The Aegis dropped its stealth systems and appeared directly in front of the command station, so close that its biomechanical hull filled their viewing screens. The sight of the alien vessel, clearly not of Imperial design, sent shockwaves through the assembled fleet. This is the ship that destroyed your Third Fleet, Rodriguez announced. 12 Imperial vessels, including a Dreadnought-class command ship, were eliminated in less than 2 hours. Your weapons could not penetrate our defenses, your sensors could not track our movements, and your ships could not escape our targeting systems. The Imperial response was immediate and overwhelming. Every ship in the system opened fire on the Aegis, creating a storm of energy that should have vaporized any known vessel. But the biomechanical hull simply absorbed the attacks, adapting and learning from each weapon type. Your demonstration is impressive, Rodriguez said calmly as the weapons fire continued, but ineffective. We have come here to deliver a message, not to destroy your capital, but we want you to understand that we could if we chose to.
The UNSS Mercy glided silently through space, its white hull gleaming against the darkness. Red crosses marked its sides, visible from all angles. Dr. Alice Morgan stood at the viewport, watching as they approached the crystalline planet of Zentar. It sparkled like a jewel, beautiful even from this distance. 2 minutes until we enter orbit, said Paul Morgan, her husband and the ship's communications specialist. He squeezed her shoulder gently. Nervous? Alice shook her head, her brown hair swaying with the movement. Just eager to help, Those people are suffering. Humanity had only been part of the Galactic Concord for 5 years. They were still newcomers, still proving themselves to the older species. This mission was important, not just for the 6 Zentari, but for showing the galaxy what humans valued. Medical team to briefing room, announced the ship's AI. Alice gave Paul a quick kiss before heading down the corridor. In the briefing room, Dr. Kevin Wright was already setting up his presentation. The epidemiologist had been studying the Zentari plague for weeks from the samples they'd received. Nurse Laura Gibson sat nearby, checking her medical kit. "The situation is worse than we thought," Kevin said as Alice entered. His face looked tired. "The disease is spreading faster than expected. Almost 30% of the northern continent is infected now." Alice frowned. "Any progress on identifying the cause?" "Not yet, but it's unlike any natural disease I've seen in any species." Laura looked up from her kit. "Are you suggesting it might be engineered?" Kevin shrugged. "I'm not ruling it out." The ship's captain, a stern woman named Donna Reed, joined them. "We're entering orbit. The Zentari have prepared a landing area next to their main medical facility in the capital city." "How's the security situation?" Paul asked as he entered. "The room." "Stable," Captain Reed replied. "The Zentari have no active conflicts. Their border dispute with the Drekki is currently in a ceasefire." Alice nodded. "Then let's get down there and start helping people." The descent to the planet's surface was smooth. Alice watched through the shuttle window as the crystalline structures of the Zentari city came into view. Their buildings looked like they had grown naturally from the ground, tall spires of purple and blue crystal reaching toward the sky. A small group of Zentari officials waited for them at the landing pad. They were tall, humanoid beings with skin that reflected light like polished gemstones. Their leader stepped forward as Alice and her team exited the shuttle. "Dr. Morgan," the Zentari said, its voice melodic. "I am Coordinator Zix. We are grateful for your assistance." Alice smiled warmly. "We came as soon as we received your distress call. Please, take us to the patients." The main medical facility was a dome of clear crystal. Inside, hundreds of Zentari lay on beds, their normally bright, skin dull and cloudy. Alice felt her heart squeeze at the sight. "The first cases appeared 40 days ago," Zix explained as they walked among the sick. "It begins with clouding of the skin, then progresses to crystallization of the internal organs." Kevin was already scanning patients with his medical tricorder. "Their cellular structure is breaking down at the molecular level. We've set up a lab for you," Zix said, leading them to a side chamber. For hours, the human medical team worked tirelessly. Alice moved from patient to patient, gathering data and administering temporary treatments to ease suffering. Paul set up a communications relay to consult with specialists back on Earth. Laura organized the distribution of medicine, while Kevin analyzed blood samples. As evening approached, Alice was examining a young Zentari child when Paul rushed into the room. "Alice," he said, his voice tight with concern, "we're picking up unusual ship movements at the edge of the system." Before she could respond, a Zentari aide burst through the door. "Coordinator Zix requests your presence immediately." In the communication center, screens showed several ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Their designs were angular and predatory, with weapons clearly visible along their hulls. "Drekki warships," Zix said, voice trembling. "They've violated the ceasefire." Alice felt a chill run down her spine. "We should contact the Galactic Concord immediately." Paul was already at the communications console. "UNSS Mercy, this is Morgan. We have a situation developing. Multiple Drekki warships have entered the system." Captain Reed's voice came through the speaker. "Understood. We're monitoring them. Stand by for possible evacuation." A new signal cut across their channel. A reptilian face appeared on the main screen, scales of dark green and yellow with slitted pupils that narrowed as they focused on the room. "This is Commander Sarthex of the Drekki Imperium," the creature hissed. "Zentari territory is now under Drekki control. Any resistance will be met with force." Zix stepped forward. "Commander Sarthex, we have a medical emergency." There are human doctors here helping with. Human interference will not be tolerated, Sarthex interrupted. Your plague is your own problem. The way he said your plague made Alice's skin crawl. Kevin caught her eye from across the room, his expression confirming her suspicion. Paul pushed past them to the console. This is Paul Morgan of the Earth Medical Corps. We are a neutral humanitarian mission protected under Galactic Concord Treaty Section 7. Our ship and personnel bear clear medical insignia. Sarthex's scaled lips pulled back in what might have been a smile. How unfortunate for you. The screen went black. Seconds later, the building shook as the first explosions hit the city. They're targeting the medical facilities, Zix cried out. Alice grabbed her communicator. All medical personnel evacuate immediately, get the patients to shelter. The building shook again, harder this time. Part of the crystal ceiling cracked and fell. Laura pushed a Zentari patient out of the way just in time, but a sharp crystal shard sliced across her arm. Paul, Alice called out. Contact the Mercy. Paul was already at the console, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. Mercy, this is Morgan. We are under attack. The Drekki are firing on medical facilities. Request immediate. An explosion rocked the building. The communications array sparked and died. Paul looked at Alice, fear in his eyes. We need to get out of here, Kevin said, helping Laura bind her wounded arm. Outside, they could see Drekki ships descending through the atmosphere. The precision of their attacks became clear. They were specifically targeting buildings with medical insignia. They're hunting medical personnel, Alice whispered in horror. The next explosion hit directly above them. The crystal dome shattered, raining deadly shards down on everyone below. Alice saw Paul reaching for her, his mouth forming her name as a massive section of ceiling collapsed. The last thing Dr. Alice Morgan saw was a flash of light as the crystal ceiling came down on the medical center, burying doctors, nurses, and patients alike under tons of shimmering debris. Hours later, in the smoking ruins, Dr. Kevin Wright regained consciousness. His body was trapped under debris, pain shooting through his broken leg. Blood trickled from a dozen cuts. Around him lay the bodies of his friends and colleagues. He could see Alice's hand, still reaching toward where Paul had stood. Kevin remained, perfectly still as he heard the heavy footsteps of Drekki soldiers moving through the ruins. They were checking for survivors. Any humans still alive? One growled. None that I can see, another replied. Commander Sarthex will be pleased. As their footsteps faded, Kevin fought to stay conscious. He needed to survive. Someone had to tell Earth what happened here. Someone had to make sure the Drekki paid for what they had done. Somewhere above, the UNSS Mercy was burning in orbit, its crew and patients massacred for the crime of offering healing. 47 human medical personnel had been killed in the attack. The Drekki had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked humanity's healers. They would soon learn the consequences. Admiral John Carter stood with his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the holographic display. The images from Zentar played on repeat. The burning medical facilities, the destroyed UNSS Mercy, and the body bags. So many body bags. 47 medical personnel confirmed dead, said his aide, Lieutenant Amy Foster. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were red. Dr. Alice Morgan, Paul Morgan, Nurse Laura Gibson, almost the entire team. Only Dr. Kevin Wright remains unaccounted for. Carter's jaw tightened. Unaccounted for doesn't mean dead. No, sir, but the Drekki have control of the planet now. If he survived, the Admiral turned away from the display. Get me the President. 30 minutes later, Carter was in the Oval Office. President Olivia Grant listened silently as he explained what had happened on Zentar. Her face grew grimmer with each detail. The Galactic Concord has issued a statement of deep concern, Carter said, not hiding his disgust. They're calling for diplomatic talks. President Grant's eyes flashed with anger. They attacked clearly marked medical personnel. That's a war crime by any civilization standards. The Concord fears escalation. The Drekki have one of the largest fleets in the sector. And what do we have, Admiral? Carter looked her directly in the eyes. "We have the Reapers, Madam President." The room fell silent. President Grant stood and walked to the window, looking out at the White House garden. Protocol Reaper hasn't been activated since the Proxima incident. Most people don't even know they exist. Most people don't need to know, Carter replied. Standard military response would lead to a drawn-out conflict with heavy casualties on both sides. The Drekki would expect that. They wouldn't expect the Reapers. The president turned back to face him. "You're asking me to authorize a Black Ops mission into Drekki-controlled space, risking further escalation if discovered. I'm asking you to send a message. They attacked our medics. There must be consequences." After a long moment, President Grant nodded. "Do it. But John, make it clean. This isn't about revenge. It's about justice and deterrence." "Understood, Madam President." Far from Earth on Mars Base Alpha, Commander Samuel Sam Beck was in the middle of a training exercise when his neural implant chimed with a priority alert. He froze, then touched the small device behind his ear. "Beck here." The voice of Admiral Carter filled his head. "Protocol Reaper is active. Operation Scalpel. Details incoming." Beck's heart rate elevated slightly before his implants automatically adjusted his body chemistry. "Understood, sir. Activating team." In the training room, the other 4 members of his squad paused their exercises. They had all received the same message through their implants. Lieutenant Grace Miller lowered the heavy weights she'd been lifting with ease. At 5'6", she looked deceptively small, but the enhanced musculature and skeletal reinforcements made her capable of extraordinary strength. Sergeant Ryan Phillips set down his sniper rifle. The targeting system integrated with his artificial eyes powered down, the faint red glow fading. Corporal Diane Wilson's fingers stopped dancing across the holographic interfaces she'd been manipulating. Her neural processor cooled, the tiny heat sinks in her skull working efficiently. Private Eric Howard stood from beside the medical dummy he'd been practicing on. The nanobots in his bloodstream, designed to heal injuries in the field, settled into standby mode. None of them needed to speak. Their neural link shared the basic information. They were being deployed. 30 minutes later, they gathered in the briefing room. The images from Zentar played on the wall screens. "Operation Scalpel," Beck said, his voice calm and measured. 47 medical personnel dead. 1 possible survivor. The Drekki attacked clearly marked non-combat human medical facilities. "Rules of engagement?" asked Phillips, his face expressionless. "Surgical," Beck replied. "This isn't a slaughter. We're after Commander Sarthex and his direct chain of command. We want the architects of the massacre, not the foot soldiers." Wilson was already accessing data through her neural implant. "The Drekki have moved their command center to the main Zentari medical facility. Ironic." "What about Dr. Wright?" Howard asked. "If he's alive, finding him is priority 1, right?" Beck nodded. "We extract any survivors first. Then we move on." The command structure. Miller checked the mission specs on her data pad. "The UNSS Harbinger is ready for us. Stealth systems upgraded since our last deployment." "What about the Concord?" Phillips asked. "Are they aware of our mission?" Beck's expression darkened. "The Concord is calling for diplomatic talks while our medics are still being buried. No, they are not aware, and they will not be made aware." The team spent the next several hours studying Drekki physiology, weaknesses, and military structure. The nanites in their bloodstreams optimized their bodies for the mission as they prepared. On the other side of the solar system, a ship like no other waited in a hidden dock at Titan. The UNSS Harbinger had no windows, its hull covered in light-absorbing material. It didn't officially exist in any registry of the Earth fleet. Meanwhile, on Zentar, Dr. Kevin Wright drifted in and out of consciousness. The pain in his broken leg had faded to a dull throb, thanks to the auto-injector from his damaged medical kit. He remained hidden under debris, hearing the Drekki patrols pass by regularly. A light touch on his arm startled him awake. A Zentari face looked down at him, its crystalline features reflecting the dim light. "Be still, human doctor," the Zentari whispered. "I am Vix, part of the Resistance. We've been searching for survivors." "The others?" Kevin croaked, his throat dry. Vix's crystal features dimmed slightly. You are the only human we have found alive. I am sorry. Tears leaked from Kevin's eyes. They need to know on Earth. What happened here? It was deliberate. They targeted medical personnel. We have ways to communicate that the Dreki cannot detect, Vix said. Can you move? With Vix's help, Kevin crawled from his hiding place. The pain was intense despite the medicine. 2 other Zentari appeared from the shadows to help carry him. The Dreki commander, Sarthex, has taken over our main medical facility, Vix explained as they moved through hidden tunnels beneath the city. They are studying your human medical technology. Kevin processed this information slowly. The plague? Did the Dreki create it? Vix stopped moving. We suspected but had no proof. Do you have evidence? Sarthex said something about your plague, the way he said it, and the disease pattern is too precise to be natural. They reached a small underground room filled with makeshift communications equipment. Another Zentari was working the controls. We need to send a message to Earth, Vix said. Kevin nodded weakly. Tell them everything and tell them the Dreki think humans are soft because we value healing. His eyes grew hard. They need to learn how wrong they are. While Kevin recorded his message, the UNSS Harbinger was already halfway to Zentar, moving faster than any known ship in the Concord fleet. On board, Commander Beck and his team prepared their weapons and equipment. Approaching Zentari system, announced the ship's AI. Stealth systems active. No detection registered. Beck looked at his team. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were the Reapers, the secret guardians of humanity. Enhanced with technology no other species possessed, trained to be the most lethal fighting force ever created. They had been made for moments like this. When diplomacy failed. When humanity's mercy was seen as weakness. They attacked our medics, Beck said quietly. Now they meet the Reapers. His team nodded in silent agreement. Soon the Dreki would learn that humanity's dedication to healing did not make them weak. It made what was coming all the more terrible. The UNSS Harbinger slipped into orbit around Zentar, invisible to Dreki sensors. Commander Beck and his team gathered in the deployment bay, checking their gear one final time. Dreki patrols are concentrated in these 3 sectors, Corporal Wilson said, highlighting areas on the holographic map. Her cybernetic implants processed the data streams faster than any computer. Their main command post is in the central medical facility. Beck nodded. Any word from our survivor? Dr. Wright's signal was traced to an underground location here. Wilson pointed to a spot near the edge of the capital city. Zentari resistance is keeping him safe for now. Lieutenant Miller finished loading her specialized explosive charges. What's the insertion plan? Halo drop, Beck replied. We go in dark, 5 miles outside the city. Phillips, you'll set up sniper position here. He pointed to a tall crystal formation overlooking the city. The rest of us infiltrate in 2 teams. Private Howard checked his medical supplies. I should go to Dr. Wright. He'll need treatment and he might have valuable intel. Agreed. Howard and Wilson, you make contact with the resistance and secure Dr. Wright. Miller and I will begin operations against Dreki Command. As the team prepared for drop, Beck felt the familiar calm settle over him. His implants regulated his hormones, keeping his mind clear and focused. They weren't just soldiers. They were something new. Humanity's response to a dangerous universe. The drop pods launched silently from the Harbinger. They fell through the atmosphere like shooting stars, their heat shields barely glowing. 5 miles above the surface, they deployed stealth chutes and landed without a sound in the crystalline forest outside the city. Sergeant Phillips was first to check in through their neural link. On the move, heading to sniper position, ETA, 20 minutes. Beck and Miller moved swiftly toward the city's edge. Their enhanced muscles and reinforced bones allowed them to cover ground at incredible speed. Their suits, made of advanced nanomaterials, adapted to match the surrounding environment, making them nearly invisible. Howard and Wilson headed in another direction, toward the resistance hideout. Wilson's implants constantly scanned for Dreki, signals or surveillance. Contact, Wilson sent through the link. Patrol ahead, 4 soldiers. Howard tensed. Engage? Negative. Beck's response came immediately. Avoid all contact if possible. We're ghosts until we choose not to be. They waited as the Drekkie patrol passed, never knowing how close they came to death. The reptilian soldiers looked bored, their weapons held loosely. They're not expecting trouble, Wilson noted. They think they've won. An hour later, Phillips had reached his position. I'm set, he reported. I can see the entire medical complex from here. Heavy guard presence. Beck and Miller had reached the outskirts of the city. The once beautiful crystal buildings were now damaged or destroyed. Drekkie soldiers patrolled the streets while Zentari civilians kept their heads down. Ready to go loud on your mark, Miller said, checking her explosives. Not yet, Beck replied. Let's see what Wright knows first. At the Resistance hideout, Howard and Wilson were met by armed Zentari. Their crystalline bodies reflected the dim light as they led the humans deeper underground. Dr. Kevin Wright looked up as they entered. His face was pale and drawn with pain. His leg had been splinted, but it needed proper medical attention. Reapers, he said, recognizing their specialized gear. I should have known they'd send you. Howard immediately knelt beside him, medical scanner in hand. Dr. Wright, I'm Private Howard. This is Corporal Wilson. We're here to help. Wright grabbed Howard's arm. Listen to me. This wasn't just an attack on medical personnel. The Drekkie created the plague affecting the Zentari. They're using our medical research to weaponize it. Wilson's eyes narrowed. How do you know? I analyzed blood samples from patients. The disease is engineered, specifically targeted to Zentari biology. And now they have our medical technology to make it worse. Howard began treating Wright's injuries, nanobots flowing from his kit to repair damaged tissue. Why would they do this? The Zentari leader, Vix, stepped forward. The Drekkie want our world. Our crystalline biology is useful to them for their technology. They've tried invasion before and failed. This time they're trying to weaken us first with disease. Wilson relayed this information to Beck through their neural link. Beck processed it quickly. Change of plans, he decided. We need to secure that medical research. Miller, we're heading to the laboratory section first. As night fell over the city, Beck and Miller slipped through Drekkie patrols like shadows. Their enhanced vision allowed them to see clearly in the darkness. The Drekkie, despite their natural night vision, never noticed them passing. They reached the laboratory wing of the medical complex. Through the windows, they could see Drekkie scientists working with human medical equipment. I count 12 scientists, 4 guards, Miller whispered. Beck analyzed the situation. We need to take them alive if possible. We need to know what they're developing. Stun charges? Set them up. I'll create a distraction. Miller moved around the building, placing small devices at key points. Beck watched the patrol patterns, identifying the weak points in their security. Phillips, he sent through the link. Status? 6 patrol boats in the air over the city. Phillips replied from his sniper position. Main guard rotation happens in 5 minutes. Target the patrol boats on my mark. Non-lethal if possible, but those ships cannot raise alarm. Understood. At the hideout, Wilson was accessing the city's systems through her neural interface. I can access their communication grid, she reported. Ready to jam on your signal. Howard had finished treating Dr. Wright. He'll need evacuation soon, but he's stable. Wright gripped Howard's hand. They have to be stopped. The research they're doing, it could kill millions. We'll stop them, Howard promised. Back at the medical facility, Beck gave the signal. Execute. Phillips fired 6 shots in rapid succession. Each patrol boat suddenly lost power, their systems fried by the specialized ammunition. They glided to quiet landings throughout the city. Wilson activated her jamming program, cutting off all Drekkie communications. In the lab building, Miller's stun charges went off simultaneously, filling the rooms with a gas that dropped the Drekkie scientists and guards where they stood. Beck moved in, swift and silent. He secured the laboratory while Miller collected data samples. Commander, Miller called softly. You need to see this. On a large screen was a star map with several human colony worlds marked. Each had a label, Phase 1, Phase 2, and so on. They're planning attacks on our colonies, Beck realized. Using what they learn here. Miller downloaded the data. This goes beyond Xentar. This is preparation for war against humanity. A sound. At the door made both turn. A Drekkie officer stood there, shocked to see humans in the lab. He reached for his weapon but froze as Beck moved faster than his eyes could track. "Commander Sarthex?" Beck asked, hand around the Drekkie's throat. No, the officer gasped. "I am Lieutenant Kraz." "Where is Sarthex?" Beck's voice was calm but terrifying. "Command center, top floor." Beck nodded to Miller, who administered a sedative. The Drekkie officer slumped unconscious. "Phillips," Beck sent through the link. "We have confirmed intelligence of planned attacks on human colonies. This is bigger than we thought." "Orders?" Phillips asked. Beck's face hardened. "We take Sarthex alive. He answers for the murdered medics, and we destroy their research. The Drekkie just discovered they're being hunted." Alarms finally began to sound throughout the Drekkie-controlled city. Commander Sarthex stood at the window of the command center, watching as sections of the city went dark. His scales rippled with anger. "Report," he barked at his officers. "Why? Are communications down?" "Unknown, Commander," said one nervous officer. "Patrol boats are not responding. We've lost contact with the laboratory section." Sarthex slammed his clawed fist onto the console. "Find out what's happening. Double the guards on this floor." On the levels below, Beck and Miller moved like ghosts through the chaos. Drekkie soldiers ran past them, never noticing the human predators in their midst. The Reaper's suits adapted to their surroundings, bending light around them. "Top floor is heavily guarded," Beck noted through the neural link. "Wilson, what's our best approach?" Wilson, still at the Resistance hideout, accessed the building's schematics through her implants. "Service shaft behind the east stairwell leads directly to the command level. Minimal security there." "Good. Phillips, status?" From his sniper position, Phillips tracked multiple targets through his enhanced vision. Drekkie reinforcements moving toward the medical center. 3 troop carriers, heavily armed. Beck made a quick decision. Take out their engines, keep them grounded, but minimize casualties. Understood. 3 precision shots rang out. Each troop carrier suddenly lurched and settled to the ground, their engines smoking but not exploding. Drekkie soldiers poured out, confused and disorganized. Meanwhile, Howard had finished stabilizing Dr. Wright and was working with Xentari healers to understand the engineered plague. "The Drekkie modified a common virus," Wright explained, reviewing the data. "It attacks the crystalline structure of Xentari cells." Howard studied the molecular structure. "Could your nanobots counteract it?" he asked Vix. The Xentari resistance leader nodded. "With the right programming, yes, but we lack the technology." "I have medical nanobots," Howard said, opening a specialized compartment in his gear. "We can reprogram them as a delivery system for an antiviral treatment." Wright looked impressed. "That could work. We'd need to synthesize the antiviral first, then program the nanobots to deliver it directly to infected cells." Howard smiled. "Let's get started." Back in the medical center, Beck and Miller had reached the service shaft. They climbed swiftly, their enhanced muscles making the ascent effortless. At the top, Beck carefully opened the panel and peered into the corridor. 8 guards, he whispered. Heavy weapons. Miller reached into her pack and pulled out a small sphere. "Stun grenade, non-lethal, but it'll knock them out for 20 minutes." Beck nodded. "Deploy." The grenade rolled silently down the corridor, stopping at the feet of the Drekkie guards. None of them noticed until it activated with a soft pulse. Invisible waves spread outward, affecting their nervous systems. One by one, they collapsed. "Clear," Beck said, stepping into the corridor. They approached the command center doors. Inside, they could hear Sarthex shouting orders. "Ready?" Beck asked. Miller nodded, explosive charges in hand. "Ready?" The doors blew inward with a controlled blast. Beck and Miller entered through the smoke, weapons ready. The Drekkie officers inside were stunned by the explosion. Only Sarthex reacted quickly, drawing his sidearm. Beck moved faster than the Drekkie commander could track, knocking the weapon aside and pinning him against the wall. "Commander Sarthex," Beck said calmly. "In the name of Earth Command, you are under arrest for war crimes against medical personnel," Sarthex hissed, his forked tongue flicking out. "Humans, how did you get past our defenses?" Miller quickly secured the other officers while Beck held Sarthex. "Your defenses were designed to stop conventional forces," Beck explained. "We are not conventional." "What are you?" Sarthex demanded, eyes wide as he struggled against Beck's inhuman strength. "We are Reapers, sent to collect the debt you owe for the lives you took." Miller accessed the command console. "Commander, I found their attack plans. Operation Soft Target. Coordinated strikes against 6 human colony worlds, targeting medical facilities first." Beck's grip tightened on Sarthex. "Explain." The Drekkie commander laughed despite his situation. "You humans and your weakness for the sick and injured. We studied you. Your military diverts significant resources to medical services. Take those out first and your fighting capacity drops by 30%. "You call compassion weakness?" Beck asked. "Of course it is," Sarthex spat. "The strong survive, the weak perish. That is the natural order." "That's where you're wrong," Beck said quietly. "Our compassion is why we're here. Because you attacked those who heal, we sent those who reap." At the Resistance hideout, Howard had made a breakthrough. "The nanobots are accepting the new programming," he told Wright and Vix. "We can begin synthesizing the antiviral treatment." Wright looked relieved. "How soon can we start treating patients?" 4 hours to synthesize enough for the first round of treatments," Howard replied. "The nanobots will replicate the antiviral once inside the body." Vix's crystalline features brightened, with hope. "You can cure our people?" "Yes," Howard said. "And we'll provide the formula to other Zentari settlements. This plague can be defeated." Wilson was monitoring communications when her implants detected a new signal. "Incoming ships," she reported through the neural link. "Not Drekkie design." Phillips confirmed from his position. 5 ships just dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system. Galactic Concord insignia." Beck processed this information. "The Concord finally decided to investigate." "Sir," Miller called from the console. "I'm receiving a transmission from Admiral Carter." Beck nodded. "Put it through." Admiral Carter's face appeared on the screen. "Status report, Commander. Medical center secured. Commander Sarthex in custody. We've confirmed the Drekkie created the plague and we're planning attacks on human colonies." Carter nodded. "The Concord representatives are with me. They were reluctant to believe our claims without evidence." Beck gestured to Miller, who transmitted the data they'd collected. "This should convince them. The Drekkie have violated multiple sections of the Concord Charter." "What about the plague?" Carter asked. "Private Howard is working with the survivor, Dr. Wright, and Zentari healers on a cure. Initial results are promising." Carter's expression softened slightly. "Good work. Minimize further engagement. A Concord peacekeeping force will land within the hour." As the transmission ended, Sarthex laughed again. "The Concord are fools. They'll debate for months while we prepare our next move." Beck turned to the Drekkie commander. "There won't be a next move. For you. You'll face trial for what you've done." "My superiors will disavow my actions," Sarthex hissed. "Claim I acted without authorization." "Perhaps," Beck acknowledged. "But the message will still be clear." "What message?" Sarthex asked. Beck leaned, close to the Drekkie commander. "That attacking human medics has consequences. That compassion isn't weakness, it's why we created specialists like me. To ensure that those who heal can continue their work without fear." Outside, Concord ships began landing. The Drekkie fleet in orbit made no move to engage them, uncertain of what had happened on the surface. Lieutenant Miller secured their prisoner. "Commander, the Galactic Concord will be here soon. We should prepare to withdraw." Beck nodded. "Agreed. Our mission is complete." Through his neural link, he contacted the rest of his team. "Operation status?" "Cure synthesis underway, Howard." reported. Dr. Wright is stable and assisting. All Drekkie communications and systems disrupted, Wilson added. Their chain of command is broken. Perimeter secure, Phillips confirmed from his position. No additional Drekkie forces approaching. Beck looked at the star map showing the planned attacks on human colonies. These had been prevented, but for how long? The Drekkie had seen humanity as weak because they valued healing and preserving life. They had learned differently today. As the first conquered peacekeepers entered the building, Beck turned to Miller. Let's go home, our work here is done. But both knew this was just the beginning. The message had been sent, but would it be enough? Alarms finally began to sound throughout the Drekkie-controlled city. Commander Sarthek stood at the window of the command center, watching as sections of the city went dark. His scales rippled with anger. Report, he barked at his officers. Why? Are communications down? Unknown, Commander, said one nervous officer. Patrol boats are not responding. We've lost contact with the laboratory section. Sarthek slammed his clawed fist onto the console. Find out what's happening. Double the guards on this floor. On the levels below, Beck and Miller moved like ghosts through the chaos. Drekkie soldiers ran past them, never noticing the human predators in their midst. The Reaper's suits adapted to their surroundings, bending light around them. Top floor is heavily guarded, Beck noted through the neural link. Wilson, what's our best approach? Wilson, still at the Resistance hideout, accessed the building's schematics through her implants. Service shaft behind the east stairwell leads directly to the command level. Minimal security there. Good. Phillips? Status? From his sniper position, Phillips tracked multiple targets through his enhanced vision. Drekkie reinforcements moving toward the medical center, 3 troop carriers heavily armed. Beck made a quick decision. Take out their engines. Keep them grounded, but minimize casualties, understood? 3 precision shots rang out. Each troop carrier suddenly lurched and settled to the ground, their engines smoking but not exploding. Drekkie soldiers poured out, confused and disorganized. Meanwhile, Howard had finished stabilizing Dr. Wright and was working with Centauri healers to understand the engineered plague. The Drekkie modified a common virus, Wright explained, reviewing the data. It attacks the crystalline structure of Centauri cells. Howard studied the molecular structure. Could your nanobots counteract it? He asked Vix. The Centauri resistance leader nodded. With the right programming, yes, but we lack the technology. I have medical nanobots, Howard said, opening a specialized compartment in his gear. We can reprogram them as a delivery system for an antiviral treatment. Wright looked impressed. That could work. We'd need to synthesize the antiviral first, then program the nanobots to deliver it directly to infected cells. Howard smiled. Let's get started. Back in the medical center, Beck and Miller had reached the service shaft. They climbed swiftly, their enhanced muscles making the ascent effortless. At the top, Beck carefully opened the panel and peered into the corridor. 8 guards, he whispered. Heavy weapons. Miller reached into her pack and pulled out a small sphere. Stun grenade. Non-lethal, but it'll knock them out for 20 minutes. Beck nodded. Deploy. The grenade rolled silently down the corridor, stopping at the feet of the Drekkie guards. None of them noticed until it activated with a soft pulse. Invisible waves spread outward, affecting their nervous systems. One by one they collapsed. Clear, Beck said, stepping into the corridor. They approached the command center doors. Inside, they could hear Sarthek shouting orders. Ready? Beck asked. Miller nodded, explosive charges in hand. Ready. The doors blew inward with a controlled blast. Beck and Miller entered through the smoke, weapons ready. The Drekkie officers inside were stunned by the explosion. Only Sarthek reacted quickly, drawing his sidearm. Beck moved faster than the Drekkie commander could track, knocking the weapon aside and pinning him against the wall. Commander Sarthek, Beck said calmly. In the name of Earth Command, you are under arrest for war crimes against medical personnel. Sarthek hissed, his forked tongue flicking out. Humans, how did you get past our defenses? Miller quickly secured the other officers while Beck held Sarthek. Your defenses were designed to stop conventional forces, Beck explained. We are not conventional. What are you? Sarthex demanded, eyes wide as he struggled against Beck's inhuman strength. We are Reapers, sent to collect the debt you owe for the lives you took. Miller accessed the command console. Commander, I've found their attack plans, Operation Soft Target, coordinated strikes against 6 human colony worlds, targeting medical facilities first. Beck's grip tightened on Sarthex. Explain. The Drekkie commander laughed despite his situation. You humans and your weakness for the sick and injured. We studied you. Your military diverts significant resources to medical services. Take those out first and your fighting capacity drops by 30%. You call compassion weakness? Beck asked. Of course it is, Sarthex spat. The strong survive, the weak perish. That is the natural order. That's where you're wrong, Beck said quietly. Our compassion is why we're here. Because you attacked those who heal, we sent those who reap. At the Resistance hideout, Howard had made a breakthrough. The nanobots are accepting the new programming, he told Wright and Vix. We can begin synthesizing the antiviral treatment. Wright looked relieved. How soon can we start treating patients? 4 hours to synthesize enough for the first round of treatments, Howard replied. The nanobots will replicate the antiviral once inside the body. Vix's crystalline features brightened with hope. You can cure our people? Yes, Howard said. And we'll provide the formula to other Zentari settlements. This plague can be defeated. Wilson was monitoring communications when her implants detected a new signal. Incoming ships, she reported through the neural link. Not Drekkie design. Phillips confirmed from his position. 5 ships just dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system. Galactic Concord insignia. Beck processed this information. The Concord finally decided to investigate. Sir, Miller called from the console. I'm receiving a transmission from Admiral Carter. Beck nodded. Put it through. Admiral Carter's face appeared on the screen. Status report, Commander. Medical center secured. Commander Sarthex in custody. We've confirmed the Drekkie created the plague and we're planning attacks on human colonies. Carter nodded. The Concord representatives are with me. They were reluctant to believe our claims without evidence. Beck gestured to Miller, who transmitted the data they'd collected. This should convince them. The Drekkie have violated multiple sections of the Concord Charter. What about the plague? Carter asked. Private Howard is working with the survivor Dr. Wright and Zentari healers on a cure. Initial results are promising. Carter's expression softened slightly. Good work. Minimize further engagement. A Concord peacekeeping force will land within the hour. As the transmission ended, Sarthex laughed again. The Concord are fools. They'll debate for months while we prepare our next move. Beck turned to the Drekkie commander. There won't be a next move. For you, you'll face trial for what you've done. My superiors will disavow my action, Sarthex hissed. Claim I acted without authorization. Perhaps, Beck acknowledged. But the message will still be clear. What message? Sarthex asked. Beck leaned, close to the Drekkie commander. That attacking human medics has consequences. That compassion isn't weakness. It's why we created specialists like me. To ensure that those who heal can continue their work without fear. Outside, Concord ships began landing. The Drekkie fleet in orbit made no move to engage them, uncertain of what had happened on the surface. Lieutenant Miller secured their prisoner. Commander, the Galactic Concord will be here soon. We should prepare to withdraw. Beck nodded. Agreed, our mission is complete. Through his neural link, he contacted the rest of his team. Operation status? Cure synthesis underway, Howard reported. Dr. Wright is stable and assisting. All Drekkie communications and systems disrupted, Wilson added. Their chain of command is broken. Perimeter secure, Phillips confirmed from his position. No additional Drekkie forces approaching. Beck looked at the star map showing the planned attacks on human colonies. These had been prevented, but for how long? The Drekkie had seen humanity as weak because they valued healing and preserving life. They had learned differently today. As the first Concord peacekeepers entered the building, Beck turned to Miller. Let's go home, our work here is done. But both knew this was just the beginning. The message had been sent, but would it be enough?